The helicopter banked low through a wall of mist, its blades slicing the fog that clung to the forest canopy like old cobwebs. Below, the trees twisted together in ancient knots, roots exposed like bones, branches curling like claws. There were no roads here, no towns, just miles of green silence rotting under the weight of time. Elara Thorne sat near the open side door, strapped in tight, her boots resting on the metal floor slick with rain. Her rifle was slung across her chest, gear cinched and silent. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. The only sound was the chop of the blades and the low hum of dread building in her gut. A voice cracked through her earpiece.
ETA 90 seconds. You getting anything on that scanner?
Kaya, her handler half a world away, watching from somewhere clean and warm.
No HUD.
Elara muttered.
Just the dark.
Right. Forgot who I was talking to.
A pause. Then Kaya's tone shifted, colder, clinical.
At 2:17 local time, Black Hollow's emergency beacon went active. Same distress signal as 15 years ago, but with one difference.
Elara turned her head slightly.
Let me guess. The dead finally said something new.
Static filtered in, followed by a corrupted audio loop.
They're still in here. We made them wrong. We can't die.
The chopper dipped lower. Through the trees, a structure emerged, squat, brutalist, overrun with vines and time. A fence wrapped around it, sagging under years of neglect. At its center, the Black Hollow Labs compound stood half-sunken into the earth, its steel walls stained with rust, windows blind with moss. Kaya spoke again.
That loop originated from sub-level 3. The logs show last personnel on site was Sethion Research and Development. Lead was Dr. Elias Moon.
Elara recognized the name. Most who worked in this world did. A mind brilliant enough to build miracles, and reckless enough to bury them. She stared down at the facility, unmoving.
They really want this place cleaned up? Or just gone?
Both. The client wants silence. You're the quiet part.
The helicopter slowed to a hover just beyond the fence. The pilot glanced back at her.
Clock starts now. I'll circle for 48 hours. After that,
He shrugged.
no one comes back for ghosts.
Elara stepped out onto the skids and jumped. Her boots hit mud. The air down here was heavy, wet with the scent of moss and something older, something sour like blood left to spoil beneath floorboards. Kaya's voice filtered back in.
Talk to me. Visual confirmation.
Elara passed beneath the twisted fence. The old security checkpoint was cracked open, overgrown and useless.
Black Hollow's here, still wearing its secrets.
You good?
I'm walking in.
Just watch yourself, El. That loop, it didn't come from the main level. It was deep. Whatever's still moving down there, it's not from your world.
Elara crossed the threshold into the main structure. The hall ahead yawned open like a throat. No lights, no sounds, just cold. The metal door behind her creaked, then slid shut. Not locked, not forced, like it had simply decided. The silence that followed was unnatural, not empty, listening. No one remembered Black Hollow. Not anymore. But something inside remembered them. The corridor swallowed her. The moment Elara stepped past the security threshold, something changed. Not the structure itself, but the air. It felt like crossing into a place the world had forgotten how to care about. Corroded panels lined the walls, stretching out into shadows that flickered with dying light. And the silence wasn't empty. It was alive. A quiet pulse beneath the hum of failing power conduits. Like the whole place was holding its breath.
Kaya, I'm inside, moving through the east access wing. Still reading me?
Loud and clear. I'm seeing fractured schematics. Place is a mess. You're about 60 meters from the central hub. Try to find any intact terminals. Anything we can recover before cleanup comes in.
Copy.
Elara kept moving, her boots crunched over shattered glass and warped floor tiles, signs of an evacuation, but not a clean one. A broken gurney lay overturned beside the wall, smeared with long-dried blood. A name tag hung from a snapped lanyard nearby, Dr. C. Halsey.
Kaya, the evac wasn't orderly. Whatever happened here, it got ugly fast.
I'm seeing logs that the Orchid Division was running late-stage tests. You're in the right wing. I'll flag anything useful as I find it.
The corridor branched. Elara followed a hallway etched with emergency lighting, scarlet lines pulsing like veins. At the far end, a heavy door stood half open, sagging on a bent hinge. She pushed through, stepping into a long chamber lined with observation glass. Her breath caught. On either side of her, reinforced cells stood behind shattered plexiglass walls, restraint chairs, blood-stained floors, busted control panels. Whatever was contained here was long gone, except one. Cell B12. The glass was intact, frosted with age but sealed. Behind it stood a figure, roughly human in shape, but the limbs were too long. The spine curved wrong, its head tilted to one side in unnatural stillness. A medical tag hung loosely from a chain embedded in its collarbone. Its skin was pale, almost translucent, and its eyes were sewn shut with fine black thread. Its mouth hung open as if mid-scream, but there was no sound. Elara stepped forward, hand hovering near her sidearm.
Kaya, I found something. One cell's still sealed. Something's inside.
A delay, then static.
Kaya, do you copy?
Nothing. Her earpiece had gone silent. Inside the cell, the thing twitched. Its head turned slowly, like it had been listening the whole time. And though the eyes were sealed shut, Elara felt its focus lock on her. The tilt of its head, the way its shoulders subtly squared, her stomach clenched. Then, a hand rose, thin fingers pressed flat to the glass, skin too pale, too soft-looking. The contact left a smear of moisture and something darker. The glass groaned faintly. Cracks bloomed. A thin spiderweb fractured across the surface. Not random. It radiated out from the point of contact like a target. Elara stepped back instinctively, hand now fully on her weapon.
Shit.
The creature stepped back just one pace, as if to get a better angle. Then it ran, full speed. Elara raised her pistol. The glass exploded. It came through in a spray of shards and shrieking metal, body bending through the opening in a blur of motion. Elara fired. 2 quick shots, dead center. They hit, but the thing didn't drop. It stumbled. Then it kept coming. Elara spun and bolted through the emergency exit on the right, keying the manual lock behind her. The steel barrier groaned shut just as a heavy impact struck it from the other side. She braced her back against the door, pulse pounding in her ears. The pounding stopped. Silence. Then, a whisper, faint, electronic. Elara! Her name. Not from Kaya, from the other side of the door. Her breath turned shallow. She looked down at her earpiece, still dead. The creature had heard her, and somehow it had remembered. Elara didn't stop running. The echo of the creature's howls still rang in her ears as Elara tore down the corridor. Boots pounding against metal flooring, slick with condensation and grime. Behind her, that sound again. Not one, but 2 sets of clawed limbs scraping steel with terrifying precision. They were hunting now, and they weren't far behind. She swerved around a shattered security drone, ducked beneath a broken pipe, steam hissing from a jagged tear in the metal, and shoved herself through a half-jammed bulkhead. The air grew thicker. The smell, a sickening mix of rot and ozone. It was like the station itself was decomposing. Then, a cracked camera overhead flickered to life, just for a second, just long enough to capture a blur. In the hallway behind her, a silhouette, crawling, unnaturally fast, on all fours. Elara's breath hitched. The hunt was far from over. Then,
Elara! Elara, come in.
Kaya's voice cracked through the comms, layered with distortion. Elara slammed herself against the nearest wall and exhaled shakily.
I'm here. Barely. I ran into something back near cryo storage. It wasn't human. Looked like it was human once, maybe, but it's not anymore.
There was a beat of silence. Kaya's voice returned, lower now.
We thought that might happen. I didn't want to believe it. Mern's reports. He said they weren't stable, that the regeneration didn't stop. It just kept evolving.
Elara ran a hand through her hair, sweat clinging to her scalp.
You knew this and sent me in alone?
We didn't know how bad it had gotten.
Kaya snapped.
But if those things are still moving, it means the serum worked. Or at least, something did.
Elara pressed forward, her gun raised as she crept through the dark. Eventually, the corridor ended in a sealed bulkhead, its panel cracked open. She pried it with a crowbar from a nearby rack, and the door groaned open, revealing a forgotten lab swallowed by dust and time. The nameplate by the shattered window read, Orchid Division, Archives, Secure Logs. Dr. L. Mern, Senior Lead. Inside, overturned chairs lay scattered among broken equipment. Desks were blanketed in old journals and bloodied papers, some scribbled with formulas, others torn and stained. Flickering wall monitors displayed corrupted data streams. Half the lights were out. Elara moved slowly, reverent, as if entering a tomb. She approached a long desk against the wall where a cracked terminal still blinked with a faint glow. Nearby, a drawer had been ripped open, revealing a half-burned tape recorder and dozens of physical journals bound in cracked leather. She tapped the terminal's activation pad. It sputtered. Then, miraculously, it came to life. The interface was old, lagging with each command. Elara accessed the archive and located a file folder marked Project Thanatos, Experimental, Phase 3, Mutagenic Reanimation. As she opened the files, the first video log loaded.
Log 1, Dr. Mern. Initial results are promising. Tissue regeneration exceeds expectations. Subjects healed from lacerations, fractures, even neural trauma. We are making history here.
Another loaded.
Log 3. We attempted full-body trauma simulation today. Subject 8 survived. Not just survived, healed in minutes. We're witnessing something beyond biology.
Elara leaned closer as the next log auto-played.
Log 6. The serum's progressing. Rapidly. Too rapidly. The cells aren't healing. They're replicating. Growing autonomously. There's intelligence in the reaction. Subject 8 doesn't sleep. Doesn't eat. It watches us. Learns. Adapts. We're shutting it down.
A corrupted segment.
Containment breach. God help us. It didn't die. We killed it, and it didn't die.
Elara's stomach turned. Her eyes scanned a side console, a flash drive port. She pulled hers from her pouch and jammed it in, initiating the data transfer. Then a voice buzzed in her comm.
Elara, copy the logs. Delete them from the server after. We can't let this get out. Orchid Division crossed a line. We were wrong.
Kaya sounded rushed, her voice hard to hear. But then, static, and another signal broke through.
Elara, you need to get out. The others, they're here. It's too late.
The transmission dropped. Elara stared at the comm, ice in her veins.
The others?
The words repeated in her mind as she looked back to the terminal. The download bar was only 68% complete. The shadows in the hallway behind her shifted, and something growled. The data transfer completed with a soft ping. Transfer complete. Deleting local files. Elara snatched the flash drive from the terminal and slipped it into a pouch on her belt. Her pulse was hammering in her ears. She turned toward the exit, but froze. A calm, cutting voice echoed from the darkened corridor.
You move fast for someone left in the dark,
A man said. She instinctively reached for her sidearm, eyes locking onto the figure stepping into view. Tall, armored, and flanked by 4 operatives, clad in matte black tactical gear. The Axiom insignia was displayed proudly on their chest plates. Luke and Voss. He walked with casual authority, helmet tucked under one arm, his expression unreadable.
You've got to be kidding.
Elara muttered under her breath.
I wish I were.
Voss replied as if they were old friends catching up.
But unfortunately for you, I'm here on business. That drive, Elara. Hand it over.
Her hand hovered near her weapon, but she didn't draw. Not yet,
You're not supposed to be here.
she said coldly. Voss shrugged.
Neither are you.
She took a step back. The odds were bad. 5 against 1, and she was boxed in.
What's Axiom really after?
She asked.
Covering up Mern's mistakes? Or trying to sell his nightmares to the highest bidder?
Don't pretend you understand the scale of what he started.
Voss said, voice low, almost patient.
That serum on that drive, it changes everything. Disease, mortality, war. We're not the villains here. We're evolution's architects.
No.
Elara said firmly.
You're the gravediggers.
One of Voss's men scoffed.
She's stalling. We should end this.
Easy.
Voss said, holding out a hand to calm his men. He looked at Elara, expression softening, almost sympathetic.
You think you're saving the world by running off with that data. You're not. You're just delaying the inevitable.
She clenched her jaw.
Then shoot me, but I'm not handing it over.
Voss exhaled through his nose and looked down as if disappointed. Then he raised his head, eyes cold.
I was hoping we could be civil.
He raised a hand. The operatives aimed their rifles. A sharp metallic groan echoed above them. Everyone froze. Elara looked up. Elara looked up.
What the hell?
The ceiling vent buckled and something dropped into the center of the room with a sickening thud. The creature, it struck fast. A flash of claws and sinew ramming into the nearest operative and tearing him apart before he could scream. Blood sprayed across the lab walls. The others shouted, weapons turning in a frenzy.
Contact!
One of them yelled. Gunfire lit up the dark. Elara dove behind a desk, rolling into cover. She drew her pistol and popped up just long enough to fire. One shot struck Voss in the shoulder, spinning him slightly. He cursed and returned fire, the round slamming into the desk with a burst of sparks. The creature roared, an inhuman sound that rattled her bones. Using the chaos, Elara broke for the hallway, sprinting as fast as her legs could carry her. Alarms began to wail in the distance. She slapped her comm.
Kaya! Kaya!
She yelled.
Are you there?
A burst of static.
Elara? What the hell happened?
Voss!
She shouted, breathless.
He was here. He tried to take the drive. But the creature, it attacked, killed his team. I hit him. I think I lost him.
Damn it.
Kaya hissed.
You need to move. They'll have backup. Get to the extraction point. I'm pulling your path now.
Copy.
Elara said, already running. Her lungs burned, her legs screamed, but she didn't stop. Behind her, the roars and gunfire faded, but not the dread. It was far from over. The sound of alarms filled the air, sharp and unrelenting, as Elara sprinted down the crumbling corridor. Her heart was racing, blood pounding in her ears. The facility had started to collapse the moment she triggered the failsafe. The creature's rampage, the firefight, the system failures. It was all coming down around her.
Warning. Reactor core instability detected. Breaches in containment zones.
The cold, mechanical voice echoed through the crumbling hallways, blending with the blaring sirens. Elara didn't stop to think. Her legs burned as she pushed herself harder, faster, every step taking her deeper into the labyrinthine halls of Black Hollow. The walls shook beneath her, and she heard a distant explosion, the sound of something collapsing. The floor beneath her feet creaked and shifted, and she barely managed to keep her footing. Concrete cracked, sending a cloud of dust into the air. She cursed under her breath. She had to get to the elevator, had to get out before the whole place came down. Lights flickered, dimming and flashing erratically as the emergency power systems kicked in. Some of the automated doors slammed shut, trapping sections of the corridor, while others creaked open to reveal horrors she didn't have the time to examine. But even as she fled, the creature was still on her trail. The scrape of claws on steel echoed behind her. That breath, ragged, too close. She dared a glance over her shoulder and saw the shifting darkness at the edge of her vision. It was still alive, wounded, but relentless.
Kaya, I'm almost to the lift.
Elara called into her comms, her voice breathless as she sprinted down a narrow corridor, dodging falling debris. The sound of dragging claws grew louder.
I've got the lift rerouted. Just hold on a little longer.
Kaya's voice crackled through the earpiece.
But there's interference. I think another team's jamming me.
Elara didn't need to hear more. She had no intention of waiting around to find out what other surprises Black Hollow had in store. She had no choice but to keep running. The walls trembled again, and Elara felt her skin prickle. A warning. More explosions, more debris falling. The whole place was coming apart. Finally, she reached the elevator shaft, and she didn't hesitate. She slammed her palm against the button, and the doors began to open. But then, just before she could step inside, a figure blocked her way. Voss. His face was bloodied, his eyes wild with fury. He was alive.
You're not going anywhere.
He hissed, his voice hoarse. He staggered forward, one arm hanging limp at his side. The wound in his side was still fresh, blood dripping down his waist. But the rage burning in his eyes was unmistakable. Before Elara could react, Voss raised his wristband, and with a sharp click, a drone shot up from the ground beside him, hovering menacingly in the air.
Elara,
Voss spat.
hand it over, now.
The drone's red targeting eye focused on her, and before Elara could reach for her gun, it fired. The sharp crack of gunfire echoed through the hall as Elara dove to the side, barely dodging the stream of bullets. She grabbed a nearby metal rod, swinging it wildly at the drone. The drone whirred, buzzing in the air, and she took advantage of the moment to disarm it, knocking it out of commission. But as soon as the drone fell, Voss was on her. He lunged at her, a brutal punch landing hard against her ribs.
You should have given up the drive when you had the chance.
He spat. She gritted her teeth against the pain but refused to go down. She fought back, grabbing his wrist and twisting it violently. Voss cursed under his breath, trying to break free, but she drove her knee into his gut, sending him stumbling backward.
Elara, get me the damn flash drive!
Voss growled, fury evident in every line of his face. Her gun was already drawn, and she fired. Shot to his side. He grunted in pain, but didn't fall.
You think this will stop me?
Voss sneered, blood dripping from his lips. A drone whirred back to life, hovering behind him again, and this time it unleashed a rapid burst of fire. Elara ducked to the side, but the bullets scraped her arm, her skin tearing as the blast grazed her. She winced but didn't stop. She backed up into the elevator, hitting the button, her fingers trembling as she slammed it repeatedly. Voss stepped forward, bloodied and furious, his teeth gritted.
You're not escaping, Elara.
He growled, his voice low and menacing. But as the elevator doors began to close, the ground beneath them shuddered violently. Debris fell from the ceiling. A deafening roar echoed down the corridor, the sound of something massive and furious charging down the hall. The creature. Voss didn't notice in time. Elara saw him flinch as the creature burst out from the shadows, claws slashing through the air. The drone was obliterated in seconds as the creature swiped at it with bone-crushing force. Voss shouted in rage, but his words were drowned out by the sound of claws scraping the walls. Chaos erupted as the creature rampaged through the hallway, attacking without mercy. Elara didn't waste a second. The doors closed just in time as Voss screamed at her. The last thing she saw was his face twisted in fury as the elevator doors sealed shut. The elevator jerked upward and Elara took a deep, ragged breath, pressing her palm against her side where she was injured. Her comms crackled in her ear.
Kaya, I'm clear. I'm headed for extraction,
Elara said, her voice barely above a whisper.
Got visual. You're clear, Elara.
Kaya's voice came through, the interference gone.
I've got the dropship waiting. Just get to it.
The elevator continued its climb, the screech of metal filling the air as the facility's walls buckled and cracked. Above her, she could see the daylight filtering through the gaps in the crumbling structure, firelight flickering in the distance. The lift doors opened to the ruined exit zone. Elara didn't hesitate. She sprinted toward the open sky, the heavy hum of the dropship's engines already overhead. But behind her, there was a sickening certainty. The look in Voss's eyes before the doors had closed, a promise of revenge, silent but looming. As Elara ran toward the dropship, the nightmare was far from over. Elara's heart pounded in her chest as she sprinted toward the waiting dropship, the sound of its engines already thumping in her ears. Freedom was within her reach. The escape was almost complete. She could taste it. The burning pain in her side, the cuts on her skin, all of it would be worth it once she was out of Black Hollow. But then, just as she was within arm's reach of the dropship's safety, The ground trembled violently beneath her feet, sending her off balance. The creature. She didn't need to look to know. The guttural growl was unmistakable. The air grew thick with the scent of something monstrous, and she felt the temperature drop as shadows stretched and twisted.
Kaya, get me out of here now.
Elara yelled into her comms, but the static had returned. The interference was too strong. A roar tore through the air. Elara spun around, heart in her throat. The creature, bloodied but still standing, loomed over her, its eyes wild with fury. It had followed her, and it wasn't done. She backed up slowly, her breath catching in her throat as she scrambled to think. She had no weapons left, no ammo. Just her survival instinct and her desperation. The creature circled, low, hissing, like a cornered beast. Elara could hear it. Claws scraping concrete, hunting. She crouched lower, heart hammering, eyes locked on the barrels of fuel nearby. And the monster. She was calculating. This had to work. Carefully, quietly. She crept around the crates, grabbed a jagged piece of metal from the debris, twisted it in her hands until it formed a point. Rough, crude, a weapon, sure, but she needed more than that. She needed fire. She tore a strip from her shirt, already soaked with sweat and grime, and wrapped it around the sharp edge. Tight. The fabric frayed, but it would hold. She dipped it into the spilled fuel. The cloth drank it up like thirst. Then, back to the creature, still circling. Her fingers trembled as she reached into her pocket, pulled out a small electronic lighter. Old tech, scavenged earlier. She struck it once. Nothing. Again. Still nothing. Then, spark. A flame. It caught. The rag ignited, flaring bright and fast in the dark. The creature screamed. Somewhere just beyond the crates. She didn't flinch. She hurled the torch. It hit. The fuel erupted. An explosion of fire blasted into the air. A deafening roar. Flames towered, casting everything in violent orange light. The creature shrieked in pain. Its body thrashing wildly in the inferno. For a moment, Elara thought it was over. But then, the creature pulled free, still burning, still alive, still coming. She stumbled back, nearly blinded by the heat and smoke. But something worse followed. Voss. Heavy boots echoed through the haze. Then he appeared, twisted, mutated, his skin discolored, his muscles warped, swollen with whatever serum he'd injected. He was barely human now, and he wasn't alone. He charged, monstrous and fast, his form shifting as he came. Elara reached for a weapon, too slow. Voss threw his mutated form at her, his hulking body slamming into the ground next to her. She dove, rolled, smoke everywhere, heat, chaos. She landed near the dropship, just in time to see it powering up. A spark of hope. Then, a cry behind her. The creature again, still hunting. Voss, still charging. She crawled toward the hatch, every breath a ragged gasp. No escape, not yet. Then, a flash of metal, a fuel canister. She grabbed it, unscrewed the top, and hurled the contents. Fuel drenched the creature, drenched Voss. This was it. Her final shot. She yanked a grenade from the dropship's emergency kit. Her hand trembled as she pulled the pin, the weight of the decision pressing on her chest. She tossed the grenade toward Voss, whose grotesque form was drenched in fuel. The grenade tumbled through the air, landing with a sickening thud right near his feet. Time seemed to slow. The grenade detonated with a deafening blast. Voss screamed as the explosion tore through him, sending a shockwave of fire and debris crashing outward. The flames ignited the fuel coating his body, and in an instant he erupted in a blaze of fire and agony, his mutated form disintegrating in the heat. Elara, now gasping for air, could only watch as the fire consumed everything in its path. The dropship's engines roared to life, lifting off the ground as the blast echoed into the sky. She was leaving Black Hollow behind, but the nightmare would never fully fade. As the dropship soared into the smoke-filled sky, she could still hear the crackling flames in her mind, the last remnants of a battle she had barely survived.